Most people aren't defeated by life. They are defeated by their own uncontrolled mind. Earl Nightingale, one of the most profound thinkers on success and human potential, said something that cuts through every excuse, every justification, every story we tell ourselves about why we haven't achieved what we want. He said, "The mind is the ultimate battlefield. Master it, and you master your circumstances." Think about that for a moment. The ultimate battlefield isn't out there in the economy, in your job, in your relationships, or in your bank account. It's between your ears. It's in the 6 inches of space where every decision, every belief, every habit, and every result originates. Successful people don't have different problems than unsuccessful people. They don't live in a different world. They don't have secret advantages that the rest of us lack. What they have is different mental control. They have mastered the one thing that most people never even attempt to manage: their own thinking. Today, you're going to discover the mental discipline that successful men and women use. The same discipline that anyone can learn. The same discipline that builds wealth, creates inner peace, and produces unstoppable results. This isn't theory. This isn't motivation. This is the operating system of high achievement. And by the end of this exploration, you'll understand exactly how to install it in your own mind. Earl Nightingale spent decades studying thousands of lives. He analyzed the patterns of success and failure across every demographic, every industry, every background imaginable. And what he found was shocking. The difference between those who succeed and those who fail rarely comes from education. It doesn't come from background, talent, luck, or connections. The difference comes from the degree of control a person has over their own thinking. That's it. That's the variable that matters most. Not intelligence, not resources, not opportunities. Mental control. The poor react to the world. They are victims of circumstance, blown around by external events, shaped by whatever happens to them. They wake up and let the day happen to them. They check their phone and let other people's priorities invade their consciousness. They turn on the news and let fear merchants program their expectations. They go to work and let their environment dictate their energy. They come home and collapse into distraction. Day after day, year after year, they hand over control of their most valuable asset, their mind. The successful create from the inside out. They understand that circumstances are secondary. The primary force is always internal. The mind comes first and reality follows. This is the mental shift that changes everything. Once you understand this, once you truly internalize it, your entire life trajectory changes. Because you stop waiting for permission. You stop waiting for conditions to be perfect. You stop blaming external factors and start building internal strength. You realize that the person with the most control over their thinking has the most control over their destiny. Let's start with a fundamental truth that Earl Nightingale taught with absolute clarity. The mind left uncontrolled is the enemy. Not sometimes. Not in certain circumstances. Always. Earl said the mind is like a rich piece of land. If you plant success seeds in that land, you get success. If you plant fear, doubt, and worry, you get failure. The soil doesn't judge. The soil doesn't care about your intentions. The soil simply produces whatever you plant in it. But here's the critical truth that most people miss. The truth that explains why so many people struggle despite good intentions. If you plant nothing, the weeds grow automatically. This is not optional. This is not something that might happen. It will happen. The mind does not stay neutral. It does not wait patiently for you to decide what to think. If you don't take control, default programming takes over. And what is the default programming? Fear, scarcity, doubt, negativity, comparison, anxiety. These are the weeds. They grow without effort. They spread without permission. They choke out possibility. They block the sunlight. They consume the nutrients. And before you know it, your mental garden is overrun. This is why most people struggle. They leave their mind unattended. Their thinking runs wild. Fear takes root without being planted. Scarcity becomes the default operating system. Doubt creeps in like fog, slowly at first, then everywhere. Negativity compounds day after day until it becomes the lens through which they see everything. And then they wonder why life feels hard. They wonder why opportunities don't come. They wonder why success seems to find everyone else but not them. They look at successful people and assume those people have some advantage, some secret, some lucky break. But the truth is simpler and harder to accept. Successful people tend their mental garden every single day. The successful understand something that the struggling refuse to accept. The mind must be managed daily, or it will work against you. This is not a one-time decision. This is not something you do once and forget. This is a daily discipline, a daily practice, a daily choice. Because every single day the weeds try to grow back. Every single day fear knocks on the door. Every single day doubt whispers in your ear. Every single day, the world bombards you with messages of limitation, scarcity, and impossibility. And every single day, you must actively, intentionally, deliberately choose what you will allow into your mental garden. Think about how you've been treating your mind. Have you been managing it? Or have you been hoping it manages itself? Have you been choosing your thoughts? Or have you been letting your thoughts choose you? Have you been feeding your mind success principles? Or have you been letting it consume whatever content happens to appear? Most people, if they're honest, have been treating their mind like a public park. Everyone's invited. Any thought can enter. Any fear can set up camp. Any doubt can build a home. And then they're surprised when their mental landscape looks chaotic. Successful people treat their mind like private property. There are gates. There are guards. There is selection. Not everything gets in. Not every thought is welcome. Not every fear is entertained. Not every doubt is given a voice. They are ruthlessly protective of their mental space because they understand that everything flows from there. Your emotional state flows from your thinking. Your decisions flow from your emotional state. Your actions flow from your decisions. Your results flow from your actions. Your life flows from your results. And it all starts with what you allow into your mind. Now let's talk about how successful people think versus how everyone else thinks. This distinction is everything. Most people think accidentally. Their thoughts are not chosen. Their thoughts are shaped by the news they watch, by what other people say, by emotions that rise and fall like waves, by fear that creeps in uninvited, by habit that runs on autopilot. They wake up and whatever thought appears first becomes the tenor of their day. They scroll through social media and let other people's curated lives shape their self-image. They listen to conversations and absorb the complaints, the gossip, the negativity. They are not thinking. They are being thought through. They are passive recipients of whatever mental content happens to float by. Earl Nightingale taught the opposite. Successful people think on purpose. They choose what they think about. They choose what they ignore. They choose what they focus on. They choose what they feed the subconscious. This is not casual. This is not accidental. This is deliberate, intentional mental management. They understand that the mind is a tool, and like any tool, it must be directed. A hammer doesn't swing itself. A computer doesn't program itself. And the mind doesn't think itself, at least not in a useful direction. Left to its own devices, the mind spirals into fear and worry. Directed with intention, the mind becomes the most powerful creative force in human experience. Because they know something that changes everything. Whatever the mind holds as true, the body, behavior, habits, and environment will follow. The subconscious mind doesn't judge. It doesn't question. It doesn't argue. It doesn't fact-check, it accepts. And then it works day and night to bring into reality whatever you've impressed upon it. If you impress poverty consciousness, it finds evidence of poverty. If you impress abundance consciousness, it finds evidence of abundance. If you impress limitation, it builds walls. If you impress possibility, it opens doors. The subconscious is neutral. It's a servant. It does what it's told. But most people never tell it anything. They just let random thoughts program it, and then they wonder why their life feels random. This is why two people can live in the same city, work in the same industry, have the same education, and produce completely different results. One thinks on purpose. The other thinks by accident. One feeds their mind success programming every morning. The other wakes up and immediately checks what the world wants them to worry about. One guards their attention like a treasure. The other gives it away freely to anyone who demands it. One becomes the architect of their life. The other becomes a reactor to circumstances. And the gap between them grows wider every single day, not because of talent or luck, but because of mental discipline. Let me give you a concrete example. Two people lose their job on the same day. Same industry, same circumstances, same severance package. Person A immediately spirals. They think, the economy is terrible, nobody's hiring, I'm too old. I don't have the right skills. What if I can't find anything? What if I lose my house? What if my family suffers? They spend their days scrolling job boards half-heartedly, complaining to friends, watching news about unemployment rates, and sinking deeper into fear. 6 months later, they're still unemployed, more desperate, more afraid, more convinced the world is against them. Person B has a different response. They think, this is an opportunity. I've been wanting to make a change anyway. What do I really want to do? Who do I know in that field? What skills do I need to develop? How can I add value immediately? They spend their days networking, learning, reaching out, creating value, positioning themselves. 6 months later, they're not just employed, they're in a better position than before, earning more, doing work they actually care about, surrounded by people who energize them. Same circumstance, radically different outcome. The difference? Mental control. Earl Nightingale identified 6 core mental disciplines, 6 habits that people who control their mind practice every single day. These are not abstract concepts. These are practical, actionable patterns that you can install starting today. And when you do, everything changes. Not because the world changes, but because you change. And when you change, your relationship to the world changes. And when your relationship to the world changes, the results you produce change. The first discipline is this. Successful people think about the future, not the past. They ask, where am I going? Not, why did this happen to me? They live forward. Their mental energy is directed toward the vision of what they are building, not the analysis of what went wrong. This doesn't mean they ignore the past, it means they don't live there. They extract the lesson and move on. They understand that the past is a place of reference, not residence. Every moment spent dwelling on what was is a moment stolen from creating what will be. Think about how much mental energy most people waste replaying the past. They replay conversations, wishing they had said something different. They replay decisions, wishing they had chosen differently. They replay mistakes, punishing themselves over and over. They replay hurts, keeping wounds fresh that should have healed years ago. And all of that mental energy that could be used to build, to create, to move forward, is spent on something that cannot be changed. The past is done. It's finished. It's complete. You cannot edit it. You cannot revise it. You cannot undo it. The only thing you can do is learn from it and apply those lessons to the future. Successful people do this instinctively. When something goes wrong, they ask, what can I learn from this? How can I use this? What does this teach me about myself, about the situation, about what to do differently next time? They extract the wisdom and discard the emotional weight. They don't carry the past like a backpack full of rocks. They travel light. They move fast. They focus forward. And because their mental energy is not divided between past and future, they have more power in the present moment. They have more clarity. They have more creativity. They have more capacity to act. The second discipline, they focus on solutions. Where others ask, who's to blame, they ask, what can I do now? This is a massive shift. Blame is seductive. It feels good in the moment. It relieves us of responsibility. It gives us someone to point at, someone to be angry at, someone to hold responsible for our pain. But it also steals our power. Because if someone else is to blame, then someone else holds the key to our future. If our problems are someone else's fault, then we need someone else to fix them. And that means we're waiting. We're dependent. We're powerless. Successful people reject that trade. They would rather have power than comfort. They would rather have control than excuses. So they train their mind to immediately shift from problem to solution, from victim to agent, from this happened to me to this is what I'll do about it. When something goes wrong, they don't waste time and energy assigning blame. They move straight to action. They ask, what's the next right move? What can I control here? What resources do I have? Who can help? What's the smallest step I can take right now to improve this situation? This solution-focused mindset creates momentum. Blame creates stagnation. When you're focused on whose fault it is, you're stuck. When you're focused on what you can do, you're moving. And movement creates options. Movement creates energy. Movement creates confidence. Movement attracts resources. People want to help someone who's taking action, not someone who's pointing fingers. Opportunities appear for people who are moving forward, not for people who are stuck in analysis and blame. The third discipline, they guard their attention. They don't let negativity, gossip, fear-based media, or other people's panic take residence in their inner world. This requires vigilance. Because negativity is everywhere. It's on the news, it's in conversations, it's in social media feeds, it's in the complaints of coworkers and the worry of family members. And if you're not careful, it seeps in, it contaminates your thinking, it lowers your frequency, it pulls you into the collective anxiety that seems to be the default state of modern society. Successful people build walls. They become selective. They protect their mental space like a fortress because they know that what gets in shapes what comes out. If you let fear in, you produce fear-based decisions. If you let negativity in, you produce negative expectations. If you let other people's limitations in, you adopt those limitations as your own. So they're ruthless about what they consume. They're selective about who they spend time with. They're disciplined about what media they allow into their consciousness. They understand that attention is the currency of mental control, and they don't spend it carelessly. Think about your typical day. How much of your attention are you giving away? How much time do you spend consuming news designed to make you afraid? How much time do you spend on social media comparing your reality to other people's highlight reels? How much time do you spend in conversations that drain you with people who complain, gossip, and spread negativity? If you're honest, it's probably more than you think. And every minute of that is programming your subconscious. Every minute of that is shaping your expectations. Every minute of that is influencing what you believe is possible. Successful people make different choices. They consume content that elevates them. They spend time with people who challenge them to grow. They engage in conversations that expand their thinking. They read books that teach them new skills. They listen to mentors who have achieved what they want to achieve. They immerse themselves in environments that reinforce success consciousness, not scarcity consciousness. And over time, this creates a completely different internal reality. Their baseline expectations are higher. Their sense of what's possible is expanded. Their belief in themselves is stronger. And all of that flows from guarding their attention. The fourth discipline, they interpret problems as signals, not as attacks. They don't see obstacles as evidence that they're on the wrong path or that the universe is against them. They see them as information, as feedback, as opportunities to adapt. This reframe is everything, because if a problem means you're failing, you'll avoid problems. You'll play small. You'll stay in your comfort zone. You'll quit when things get hard. But if a problem is simply data, simply a signal that says adjust here, then you stay in the game. You stay resourceful. You stay flexible. And you keep moving forward. Earl Nightingale taught that obstacles are not roadblocks, they're redirections. They're the universe's way of saying, not that way, this way. They're information about what doesn't work, which is just as valuable as information about what does work. Thomas Edison famously said he didn't fail 10,000 times trying to invent the light bulb. He successfully discovered 10,000 ways that didn't work. That's the mindset. That's the interpretation. Problems are not personal. They're not proof of inadequacy. They're not evidence of unworthiness. They're simply feedback in the process of creation. When you adopt this mindset, you become unstoppable. Because now failure doesn't mean anything about you. It just means you tried something that didn't work, and now you have more information. Rejection doesn't mean you're not good enough. It just means that particular person or opportunity wasn't aligned, and now you can focus your energy elsewhere. Mistakes don't mean you're incompetent. They just mean you're learning, growing, developing new skills. This interpretation removes the emotional charge from obstacles. And when you remove the emotional charge, you can think clearly. You can strategize. You can adapt. You can persist. The fifth discipline, they speak to themselves intentionally. Instead of letting automatic inner dialogue run wild, they direct it. Most people have a voice in their head that criticizes, doubts, and fears constantly. That voice says things they would never say to someone they love. That voice is harsh, judgmental, cruel. That voice tells them they're not good enough, not smart enough, not talented enough. That voice predicts failure, expects rejection, and rehearses worst-case scenarios on a loop. And most people think that voice is them. They think that's just how they think. They don't realize that voice is conditioning. It's programming. It's the accumulation of every criticism, every failure, every fear they've ever absorbed from parents, teachers, society, media. Successful people recognize that voice and they overwrite it. They choose different words, they choose empowering language. They speak to themselves the way a champion speaks to themselves, not because they feel like it, but because they know words shape beliefs, beliefs shape actions, and actions shape results. They understand that the conversation they have with themselves is the most important conversation they'll ever have, because it determines everything else. So they manage that conversation. They direct it. They make it intentional. When they make a mistake, they don't say, "I'm such an idiot." They say, "That didn't work. What can I do differently?" When they face a challenge, they don't say, "This is too hard for me." They say, "This is hard, and I'm capable of figuring it out." When they experience a setback, they don't say, "Nothing ever works out for me." They say, "This is temporary. I've overcome things before. I'll overcome this too." These might seem like small distinctions, but they compound. Day after day, year after year, the way you speak to yourself creates the identity you embody, and the identity you embody determines the actions you take and the results you produce. The sixth discipline: they keep mental focus on one major goal, not 10 little ones, not a scattered list of wishes. One clear, burning, non-negotiable target. Earl Nightingale said, "A person with a single major goal is unstoppable." Why? Because focus creates force. Diffusion creates weakness. When all of your mental energy flows in one direction, you become a laser. You cut through obstacles. You see opportunities others miss. You attract resources. You develop momentum. You build expertise. You create compound progress. But when your energy is scattered across a dozen different desires, you become a flashlight. Broad, dim, ineffective. Most people fail not because they aim at one target and miss, but because they aim at 10 targets and hit none of them. They want to lose weight, and build a business, and write a book, and learn a language, and improve their relationships, and travel the world, and master a skill. And all of those are worthy goals. But pursued simultaneously, they cancel each other out. There's not enough focus, not enough energy, not enough time, so nothing really moves. Nothing really changes. Years pass and they're still in the same place, wondering why they haven't made progress, not realizing that progress requires concentration of force. Successful people choose one major goal for a season. They identify the one thing that, if achieved, would change everything else. And then they organize their entire life around that goal. Their morning routine supports it. Their daily actions advance it. Their decisions are filtered through it. Their environment reinforces it. Their relationships either support it or are minimized. This isn't balance, this is commitment. This is the willingness to say no to good things so you can say yes to the one great thing. And this level of focus creates results that seem miraculous to outside observers, but are simply the natural outcome of concentrated effort over time. Now let's go deeper. Let's talk about the law that few people understand, the law that governs everything, the law that Earl Nightingale believed was the master key to success. The law is this: inner state produces outer fate. Circumstances are always downstream of consciousness. Always. If your inner state is chaotic, fearful, doubtful, scattered, your life reflects that. You get chaos, you get fear-based decisions, you get doubt-driven inaction, you get scattered results. The outer world becomes a mirror of the inner world. If your inner state is focused, calm, confident, determined, you become magnetic to opportunities, ideas, people, and progress. This is not wishful thinking. This is not metaphysical fantasy. This is observable, repeatable reality. When you change your inner state, your behavior changes. You walk differently. You speak differently. You make eye contact differently. You show up differently. When your behavior changes, people respond to you differently. Opportunities present themselves differently. Conversations unfold differently. When your results change, your circumstances change. Your income changes. Your relationships change. Your environment changes. The successful are not lucky. They are organized internally, and life aligns around them. They walk into rooms and things shift, not because they're manipulating anyone, not because they're pretending, but because they're operating from a different frequency. And that frequency is palpable. People feel it. People respond to it. People are drawn to it. They make decisions and doors open. Not because the universe is doing them favors, but because their clarity creates certainty and certainty creates action, and action creates results. This is the law. Inner state produces outer fate. Master your inner state and your outer circumstances must eventually conform. So how do you do this? How do you actually take control of your mind on a daily basis? How do you move from being thought through to thinking on purpose? How do you shift from reactive to creative? Earl Nightingale developed a daily mental control ritual. It's simple, it's practical, and it's been used by thousands of people who transformed their lives. The ritual has 3 parts: morning, midday, and night. Each part serves a specific function. Each part builds on the others. Together, they create a complete system for mental mastery. In the morning, you set the mind. This is the most important part of the day. The first hour after waking determines the trajectory of the next 16 hours. Most people sabotage themselves in the first 10 minutes. They grab their phone. They check email. They scroll social media. They read the news. And within minutes, their mind is filled with other people's priorities, other people's problems, other people's agendas. They've handed over control before they even got out of bed, and then they wonder why they feel reactive, scattered, overwhelmed all day long. Successful people do the opposite. Before they check their phone, before they read the news, before they talk to anyone, they take 10 to 30 minutes to set their mental state for the day. They create a morning ritual that programs their subconscious for success. Here's what that looks like. First, they review their major goal. They read it. They visualize it. They see it as if it's already accomplished. They feel the emotions of achievement. They let their subconscious mind absorb the image of success. This impresses the goal onto the subconscious, and the subconscious immediately goes to work finding ways to make it real. Second, they decide who they will be today, not what they'll do, who they'll be. This is critical, because doing flows from being. If you decide to be confident, you'll act confidently. If you decide to be focused, you'll act with focus. If you decide to be calm under pressure, you'll handle challenges calmly. But if you don't decide, you'll default to whatever state emerges from circumstances. You'll be reactive, you'll be emotional, you'll be scattered. So they consciously choose their identity for the day. They ask, who do I need to be today to move toward my goal? And then they embody that person from the moment they walk out the door. Third, they choose 3 actions that move them forward, not 20. Not a giant to-do list that's really just a recipe for feeling overwhelmed and inadequate. 3 things. 3 specific, concrete actions that, if done today, will create measurable progress toward their major goal. They write them down, they commit to them, and they make sure those 3 things happen before anything else. This creates momentum. This creates wins. This creates the feeling of progress, which is one of the most powerful motivators in human psychology. And they start their day from a position of mental strength, clarity, and purpose. During the day, they watch their inner dialogue. This is where most people lose the battle, because the mind wanders. It slips back into fear. It replays past failures. It imagines future disasters. It compares their progress to other people's highlight reels. It judges. It worries. It doubts. And if you're not paying attention, that becomes your state. That becomes your frequency. That becomes the consciousness from which you're operating. And remember, inner state produces outer fate. So if your inner state is fear and doubt, your outer results will reflect that. Successful people become the watcher. They develop what psychologists call metacognition, the ability to observe their own thinking. They notice when the mind drifts into fear, scarcity, or negativity. And when it does, they don't judge themselves. They don't shame themselves. They don't make it mean anything about their worth or ability. They simply stop, replace the thought, and redirect toward their chosen future. This is the practice. This is the discipline. This is what separates those who control their mind from those who are controlled by it. Here's how it works in practice. You're working on your business. A fear thought appears. What if this doesn't work? What if I fail? What if people think I'm foolish? Most people let that thought run. They entertain it. They elaborate on it. They build a whole story around it. and within minutes, they're paralyzed. They've talked themselves out of taking action. But the person with mental discipline notices the thought. They recognize it as programming, not truth, and they replace it. They say, "That's fear talking. The truth is I'm learning and growing every day. I'm committed to this goal. I've overcome challenges before. I'll figure this out too." And then they redirect their attention back to the work. This happens dozens of times a day. The mind wanders toward fear. You catch it. You redirect. The mind wanders toward doubt. You catch it. You redirect. The mind wanders toward comparison. You catch it. You redirect. It's not about being perfect. It's not about never having negative thoughts. It's about not letting those thoughts run the show. It's about being the director of your own mental movie instead of just a passive viewer. And over time, this practice becomes automatic. Your baseline thoughts shift. Your default expectations change. Your mental garden becomes dominated by success programming instead of fear programming. At night, they evaluate. This is the completion of the cycle. Before bed, they take 5 to 10 minutes to review the day. They ask themselves one simple question. Did I think like the person I want to become today? Not, did I achieve everything? Not, was I perfect? Not, did everything go according to plan? Just, did I think like the person I'm becoming? Did I maintain mental discipline? Did I catch negative thoughts and redirect them? Did I focus on solutions instead of problems? Did I guard my attention? Did I speak to myself with empowering language? Did I keep my focus on my major goal? If the answer is yes, they acknowledge it. They let that win register in their consciousness. They say, I showed up today. I maintained discipline. I'm becoming the person I want to be. This acknowledgement is crucial because it builds identity. It reinforces the new programming. It tells the subconscious, this is who we are now. If the answer is no, they don't spiral. They don't criticize themselves. They don't make it mean they're failing. They simply make a note of where they slipped, and they commit to doing better tomorrow. They say, I noticed I let fear run for a few hours today. Tomorrow I'll catch it sooner. I'm learning. I'm growing. I'm on the path. This is mental self-mastery. Done daily, it transforms everything. Not overnight, not in a week, not in a month. But over time, the compound effect is unstoppable. 6 months of this practice and you're a different person. A year of this practice and your life is unrecognizable. 2 years of this practice and people start asking you what your secret is. But there's no secret. There's only discipline. There's only the daily choice to control your mind instead of being controlled by it. Now here's the hidden truth that Earl Nightingale discovered. The truth that most people never accept. The truth that, once understood, changes everything. You cannot rise higher than your mind. Earl said, a person's life is a perfect reflection of their mind. Not sometimes, not occasionally. Not when conditions are right. Always. In every circumstance. In every season. Your life is a perfect, precise reflection of your dominant thoughts, beliefs, and expectations. Your relationships reflect your self-image. If you believe you're worthy of love and respect, you attract relationships that provide love and respect. If you believe you're unworthy, you attract relationships that confirm that belief. Your income reflects your beliefs about money and your own value. If you believe money is scarce and hard to earn, your income will be limited. If you believe you provide immense value and money flows easily to value creators, your income will reflect that. Your health reflects your beliefs about your body and what's possible for you. If you believe your body is fragile and decline is inevitable, that becomes your reality. If you believe your body is resilient and capable of remarkable healing and strength, that becomes your reality. Your opportunities reflect your expectations. If you expect doors to close, you'll unconsciously sabotage opportunities. If you expect doors to open, you'll see possibilities others miss. Your results reflect your thinking. Always. This is not metaphor. This is mechanism. Your thoughts create your beliefs. Your beliefs create your expectations. Your expectations create your focus. Your focus determines what you see and what you miss. What you see determines your decisions. Your decisions determine your actions. Your actions determine your results. It's a perfect chain. And it starts with thought. And this is the liberating truth. Once you accept that your life is a perfect reflection of your mind, you realize something profound. You have complete power. Not power over external circumstances. Not power over other people. Not power over the economy or the weather or random events, but power over the one thing that actually matters. Power over your mind. And if you control your mind, your destiny is no longer controlled by the economy, by your past, by your circumstances, by your mistakes, or by other people. You become the cause, not the effect. Think about what that means. Right now, in this moment, you might be dealing with circumstances you don't like. Maybe your income is lower than you want. Maybe your relationships are strained. Maybe your health isn't where it should be. Maybe opportunities seem scarce. And the natural tendency is to believe those circumstances control you, to believe you're stuck, to believe change is impossible or dependent on external factors. But Earl Nightingale is telling you something different. He's telling you that those circumstances are effects, not causes. They're results, not starting points. And the cause, the source, the origin of all of it is your mind. Which means if you change your mind, if you change your dominant thoughts and beliefs, the circumstances must eventually change too. Not because of magic, not because the universe is granting wishes, but because when your mind changes, your focus changes. When your focus changes, you see different opportunities. When you see different opportunities, you make different decisions. When you make different decisions, you take different actions. When you take different actions, you get different results. When you get different results consistently, your circumstances transform. This is the path. This is the process. This is how mental control translates into life transformation. You become the creator, not the victim. You step into the driver's seat of your own life. And from that position, everything becomes possible. Not easy, not instant, not without effort or challenge, but possible, within your control, dependent on you, not on luck or circumstances or other people's decisions. This is freedom. This is power. This is what Earl Nightingale taught. This is what successful people understand. This is what you can choose starting today. This is the difference between success and failure. It's not talent. It's not luck. It's not connections. It's not education. It's not circumstances. It's the degree of mental control you exercise every single day. Two people can have the same resources, the same opportunities, the same challenges. One succeeds. One fails. Why? Mental control. One person directs their thinking. The other lets their thinking run wild. One person feeds their mind success programming. The other absorbs whatever the world happens to provide. One person maintains discipline daily. The other hopes for the best and reacts to whatever happens. The world rarely rewards effort. It rarely rewards struggle. It rarely rewards hustle alone. The world rewards clarity of mind and consistency of thought, because clarity and consistency create focused action, and focused action, sustained over time, produces results that seem miraculous to those who don't understand the principle. But there's no miracle. There's only cause and effect. There's only the law that inner state produces outer fate. There's only the reality that the person who masters their mind masters their circumstances. Control your mind, and eventually your life will have no choice but to follow. Not because you're forcing it, not because you're manipulating reality, but because you've aligned yourself with the creative principle that governs all success. You've become the person who thinks the thoughts that produce the actions that create the results you want. You've stopped reacting and started creating. You've stopped being the victim of your circumstances and become the architect of your life. This is the promise. This is the path. This is what Earl Nightingale taught, and this is what works. Not sometimes. Not for special people. For anyone willing to do the work. For anyone willing to accept responsibility for their thinking. For anyone willing to practice daily mental discipline. For anyone willing to stop making excuses and start making progress. The question is not whether this works. The question is, will you do it? Will you take control of your mind? Will you practice the disciplines? Will you guard your attention? Will you think on purpose? Will you become the person who succeeds not because of luck, but because of mental mastery? The choice is yours. It always has been. And starting today, you know exactly what to do.